The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Mitchell and Associates' corporate tower, casting long golden rectangles across the polished marble floor. David Torres pushed his cleaning cart down the quiet hallway, the soft squeak of its wheels echoing in the peaceful silence. It was 7:30 in the morning, that magical hour when the building belonged to him and the handful of early arrivals who came in before the daily chaos began. David had been working as a janitor at Mitchell and Associates for 3 years now. He knew every corner of this 40-story building, every stain that needed special attention, every executive who preferred their office cleaned in the morning versus the evening. At 32, he had found a certain peace in his work. There was something satisfying about transforming messy spaces into pristine environments, about being the invisible force that kept everything running smoothly. The elevator dinged softly as it reached the 38th floor, and David stepped out with his cart. This was the executive level, where the corner offices housed the company's most important decision-makers. The carpets here were thicker, the artwork more expensive, and the silence more profound. David moved methodically from office to office, emptying trash bins, dusting surfaces, and ensuring everything was perfect for the day ahead. As he approached the CEO's office, David noticed something unusual. The heavy oak door was slightly ajar, and he could hear soft voices inside. This was strange because Margaret Mitchell, the company's CEO, rarely arrived before 9 o'clock. David paused, uncertain whether to proceed with his cleaning or return later. "I know it's early, sweetheart, but Mommy had an important meeting that got moved up," came a woman's voice from inside the office. "You can play quietly with your bear while I work, okay?" David recognized the voice immediately. It was indeed Margaret Mitchell, though he had never heard her speak so gently before. In the few interactions he'd had with the CEO, she had been professional but distant, the kind of person who seemed to look right through service workers like him. "Can I color too?" came a small, sweet voice that made David's heart skip. It was a child, probably very young from the sound of it. "Of course, Emma. I brought your coloring books and your special crayons. Just stay right here in Mommy's office, and we'll go get pancakes after my meeting, I promise." David stood frozen in the hallway, unsure of what to do. He didn't want to interrupt what was clearly a private moment between mother and child, but he also had a job to complete. After a moment of internal debate, he decided to skip the CEO's office for now and return later. He began to quietly push his cart past the door. That's when disaster struck. One of the wheels on his cart hit a small bump in the marble floor, causing the cart to jolt. A bottle of glass cleaner that hadn't been properly secured fell from its holder, hitting the ground with a sharp crash. The plastic bottle bounced once, twice, then rolled directly toward the open office door. David winced, knowing there was no way to pretend this hadn't happened. He quickly abandoned his cart and hurried after the wayward bottle, which had rolled right into Margaret Mitchell's office and come to rest near an expensive-looking Persian rug. "I'm so sorry," David began, bending down to retrieve the bottle. "I didn't realize anyone was—" He stopped mid-sentence when he looked up and saw her, a little girl, probably 4 or 5 years old, sat cross-legged on the floor near her mother's desk. She had golden curly hair that caught the morning light streaming through the windows, and she wore a pale blue dress that looked like something a princess might wear to breakfast. In her small arms, she clutched a well-loved teddy bear with soft brown fur and kind button eyes, but it wasn't her appearance that stopped David cold. It was the way she was looking at him. Her large, bright eyes were filled with a mixture of curiosity and something else, something that looked almost like hope. "Emma, honey, this is just Mr. Torres," Margaret Mitchell said quickly, her professional composure clearly rattled by the unexpected interruption. "He works here, he's just cleaning." David straightened up, still holding the glass cleaner bottle, and gave a small, awkward wave. "Hi there," he said softly. The way he had learned to speak to children during his volunteer work at the local community center. Emma tilted her head to one side, studying him with the intense focus that only children possess. She hugged her teddy bear tighter, and David noticed that the bear was missing one of its ears, clearly a beloved companion that had seen many adventures. "Are you my new daddy?" Emma asked, her voice clear and innocent in the quiet office. The question hung in the air like a soap bubble, delicate and impossible to ignore. David felt his cheeks flush red, and he glanced quickly at Margaret Mitchell, whose face had gone completely white. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the gentle hum of the air conditioning and the distant rumble of traffic far below. David's mind raced. This was clearly a complicated situation that he didn't understand. He knew Margaret Mitchell was divorced office gossip, traveled fast, even to the janitorial staff, but he had no idea what this little girl's story was or why she would ask such a question of a complete stranger. Margaret Mitchell cleared her throat, her professional mask slipping back into place. Emma, sweetheart, Mr. Torres is just here to clean the offices. He doesn't. She struggled to find the right words, clearly flustered in a way that David had never seen her before, but David was no longer looking at the CEO. His attention was entirely focused on Emma, who was still watching him with those hopeful eyes. Something about her expression reminded him of himself at that age, the way he used to scan every face in every crowded place, wondering if his own father might appear one day. David knelt down slowly, bringing himself to Emma's eye level. He set the glass cleaner bottle aside and spoke in the same gentle tone he used when reading stories to kids at the community center. "That's a very special teddy bear you have there," he said. "What's his name?" Emma's face lit up with the kind of joy that only comes from having an adult truly pay attention to her. "His name is Mr. Buttons, but he lost one of his ears when I was 3. Mommy says he's still perfect, though." "Your mommy is absolutely right," David said, smiling genuinely. For the first time that morning, sometimes the things we love most are the ones that have been through adventures with us. Mr. Buttons looks like he's been on lots of adventures. "He has," Emma said excitedly, loosening her grip on the bear slightly. "He went to the hospital with me when I had my tonsils out, and he comes to work with Mommy sometimes when I don't have anywhere else to go." David glanced up at Margaret Mitchell, who was watching this interaction with a mixture of surprise and something that might have been gratitude. He could see the exhaustion in her eyes now, the kind that came not from late nights at the office, but from the constant juggling act of being a single parent in a demanding job. "That sounds like Mr. Buttons is a very good friend," David said, turning his attention back to Emma. "And to answer your question from before, I'm not your new daddy. But I think you already have someone who loves you very much right here." Emma looked over at her mother, then back at David. "Mommy works a lot," she said matter-of-factly. "Sometimes I wish I had a daddy too, so Mommy wouldn't be so tired." The honesty of the statement hit both adults like a physical blow. Margaret Mitchell's carefully controlled expression cracked slightly, and David felt a familiar ache in his chest, the echo of his own childhood wishes. "You know what I think?" David said, his voice still gentle, but now carrying a note of wisdom that came from his own experience. "I think your mommy works hard because she loves you so much. And sometimes when people love us that much, they carry a lot on their shoulders. Maybe what your mommy needs isn't a new daddy for you, but friends who can help make things a little easier sometimes." Margaret Mitchell looked at David with genuine surprise, as if seeing him clearly for the first time. Here was a man she had passed in the hallways for 3 years without really noticing, and yet he had managed to understand her situation and speak to her daughter with more wisdom than she had been able to muster herself. "Mr. Torres," she said quietly, "I thank you." "That was very kind." David stood up slowly, picking up his glass cleaner bottle. "Emma," he said, "would it be okay if I came back later to finish cleaning? I don't want to interrupt your coloring." "Time with Mommy," Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Will you come back and see Mr. Buttons again?" "If it's okay with your mommy," David said, looking at Margaret Mitchell, who nodded with a small, genuine smile. As David gathered his supplies and prepared to leave, Emma called out one more time, "Mr. Torres?" "Thank you for being nice to Mr. Buttons." "Thank you for introducing us," David replied, and meant it. As he pushed his cart back into the hallway, David realized that something had shifted in that brief encounter. He had seen Margaret Mitchell not as an untouchable executive, but as a mother doing her best in difficult circumstances. And she, perhaps, had seen him not as an invisible service worker, but as a person with kindness to offer. Sometimes, David thought as he continued his work, the most important connections happen in the most unexpected moments. And sometimes, the simple act of being seen, really seen by another person, can change everything. The morning sun continued to stream through the tall windows, but now at S.